Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hani Elbana. This was thanks for taking us back into with a historical perspective. We hope we don't feel all as orphans. Surely seeing you with all those celebrities doesn't give us that impression. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, please note them down, because after the next keynote speaker, we'll have time to have a round of comments and discussions. Yes, okay, you already switched the PowerPoint. Then let me introduce the next keynote speaker, Mrs. Smruti Patel, Director of the Geneva-based Global Mentoring Initiative. Good. You have your manuscript, and let's take on this one.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues and friends, because I see many friends where I've seen them over the years working in the humanitarian sector. What I'd like to do today is share some personal experience. Just like Hani, many of us who live abroad because of circumstances. So to say that I was born in Uganda, and through circumstances ended up in the UK when my father was expelled by Idi Amin, so became a refugee. So having lived there, and because of the way we had to deal with some of those situations, being part of the refugee community, and if you see now the progress that they have made and the contribution they have made to the UK society has been enormous. And I think we have to celebrate that. And we need to celebrate the amount of effort that can actually go into helping different emergencies. I want to share a personal experience with you. In 2001, I was visiting India on a family visit and a wedding, the normal Indian weddings, right? Very long, and so many people there. A lot of the family had flown there. The next day, on the 25th of January, we were traveling to Rajasthan to visit some NGOs. On the 26th of January, there was a huge earthquake, 7.7 Richter scale in Gujarat. 14,000 people perished. Almost 10 million people were affected by the crisis, and 5 million needed immediate attention. My family was in Gujarat, so here are the diaspora who were there visiting on the occasion. Immediately, they started looking at how can they help. What transpired later on, as we were not there, is that they immediately looked at how to help the neighbors, immediately put the garden as a camp, because the people who were in the surrounding areas living in the apartment blocks were too afraid to go back to their apartments. They were really traumatized. So they immediately set up camp. Everybody bunched together to provide food and other things. So, you know, this urge to help is a human urge to help. And it doesn't look at, well, is this my clan? Is it this one my clan? Actually, straight away you want to help whoever is around. And of course, your community is around you, so that's the first instinct. It transpired 2 days later, when everything settled, they realized that they were actually not so badly off as the ones who were really in the epicenter of the response. So you know what did they do? They started putting together food and other supplies so they can send it to where the epicenter was, 5 hours drive from where we were in Gujarat. So sometimes when we are told that actually you only help the communities that you know or your clan, you know, for me sometimes I think we need to look a bit deeper. So they helped. My father went back to the UK and he started raising funds to see how they can help further. Myself. So I was at the time based in Switzerland, and I was thinking, what can I do? I went straight away to the Federation, International Federation of the Red Cross, and offered what can I do as my services. I knew the language, I knew the culture, I knew the environment, and I was a humanitarian. I'd been working in Chechnya, in Afghanistan, in other places, everywhere else in the conflict zone except for India, ever before. So I said, this is where I can make a contribution. So I got deployed as one of the delegates. And what I found out is that how, how much difference you can make as diaspora. I knew how to connect with people. So first thing they did is connected me to the local authorities and also the local people. I knew who the gatekeepers were. Very important when you're trying to provide access to the communities, making sure we get the right people, the most vulnerable people. I was making sure that I was able to not just read the language, but body language. Okay, so often when the I think the response is taking place, you can work through translators, but you cannot translate the body language. So it's really, really important. And these are some of the, I think, the key advantages of having diaspora on the ground and actually really know how to get to the right places and the right target populations. But now I would like to share with you some of the learnings from working in international organizations for the last 15, 20 years, showing my age. In every location, in Chechnya, in Afghanistan, in India, in other places in Africa, I've come across diaspora organizations who are helping in the different situations. They can be really, really helpful in making sure that this response is grounded. What my last 40 organizations that I actually talked to in Syria response, one of the things that comes out is that they need the support to ensure that they can be more grounded in the way the humanitarian system is working, making sure that they realize what are the real partnerships. One of the biggest issue, and I think Dr. Hani talked about it as well, is we want to work as partners. What are some of the equitable partnership principles that we can follow? Because this is some of the challenges that face diaspora organizations. We need to be a bit more concrete about that and maybe explore from the viewpoint of the diaspora organization what are equitable partnership principles that we can follow to ensure that we are getting the right resources and mentoring that's necessary to be able to be effective. One of the themes that we've been talking about in the World Humanitarian Summit is leaving no one behind, but how do we do things differently? Okay? The challenge, I think, is do we want to become same as the conventional actors? Because if we become the same, perhaps we may inherit some of the weaknesses. So my challenge to diaspora organizations is how can we make ourselves distinct so we add value? And I think added value is really, really key. Because if you become the same as the others, then what's the difference, right? So what are your added values and how can you retain that identity through your mandate and mission, making sure that you really look at that. What I also see is that there's a lot of capacity building happening with the partners, but it's very much on the technical side, which is really good. Right? I'm not saying it's not good. Technical is good. But what about organizational capacity strengthening, right? That is really, really a key issue. I think Dr. Hani said earlier, you are maybe chasing after funding or program or project funding, but as an organization, how can you be more sustainable so that you have real strategy in place to help you to move forward? One of the approaches we are taking, and this comes from my learning from in the last 20 years in this sector, is how can you make sure that you have some kind of mentoring initiative, which is an accompaniment process, so that we are not dropping training on organizations and then leaving them behind, because the real challenges come when you're trying to implement. When you're really on the ground is when the questions come. And sometimes we don't have a hand that we can hold to say, actually, I've got a real problem here. Sometimes it's a thing about trust, because you may not turn to your partner, because if you let them know that there is a problem, that maybe they'll stop supporting you. And this is issues of trust that really needs to kind of come to the center. So one of the ideas that they had suggested in Syria situation, especially Diaspora and other local organizations as well, is can there be an initiative or an independent initiative that can help us when we need the help to move forward, if there are any issues, who can mentor us and who can help take us forward. So it's really, really important that we move in a different way. And I would say to the organizations and partners who are in the room, EU and others, and ECHO, it's really important that you emphasize in the partnership agreement that there are some concrete steps to strengthen capacity of organizations, but in an accompaniment way, really making sure that you are able to implement your own mandate and mission, because again, what is their added value? If you really are, if you are created to ensure you work in a different way with an added value to make sure that you can continue on that front. Make sure that your values are really at the center, that you don't forget where you're coming from, because often if you're chasing after funding, sometimes you will go in another direction. And I've seen this happening for local organizations as well in Liberia and others, where I have spoken to them, and they said, actually we started off like this because we really felt the community needed us, but in the end, through the partnership, the way the partnership worked, we went in a different direction. So making sure that you stay true to the values and that you're really making the difference, that you don't become like the other conventional actors, that you retain your value. I think one of the biggest issue at the moment, especially in the places where there are conflicts and we are working there, is making sure that you learn to manage the risk. And the way you work with your partners, that the risk is not just transferred to you, but you work with your partner to learn to manage your risk, because this is absolutely key. Because if not, you will end up in trouble, and the trust level will go down with your community as well as the partners. Really, really key. And accountability and transparency in terms of the way you are working is absolutely key to build that trust. Making sure that you have visibility in the eyes of your national, wherever you are residing, as well as the national community. It's really, really important, because sometimes we also have a challenge in the way we behave, which we may be seen as coming from outside but not really connecting. So it's really important that that becomes, make sure that we become a solution and not a problem. Really, really key. And I'm going to leave you with something to say, how will we really become different? We become a bridge and not another layer. Okay? The reason why I'm saying this is there's that whole discussion out there about localization, that we need to make sure we strengthen local organizations because they're there. We're not always there. okay? We're not always on the ground. So making sure that the way we work as diaspora, we have the opportunity. We are there before, we are there during, and we are there after. We have the opportunity to show the way, to really show the way on how to make sure localization works and that we build the capacity which is sustainable, because that's in the end which will show our distinctiveness. How do we make sure we are different? And this whole issue of whether it's humanitarian or development, on the ground, you know it doesn't make a difference because you will deal with the issues that are facing you, okay? It's not that, and the population also don't make that difference. So what I would like to leave you with is, this is a really big opportunity. How will we take it will really make the future. The next generation. So if I say that in terms of the age, say my father's generation, I've inherited something from my father's generation because the way he's helping, it's given me motivation to do the same. Are we making sure the next generation of diaspora are also taking up that responsibility? Okay, so how do we make sure the youth are also involved in this so that going forward, it's a consistent response going forward, and actually take this opportunity to engage in the humanitarian system, but make sure you make the difference, you have your added value. You don't become like the conventional system because otherwise you will lose your value. I just want to leave you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Patel. I think I have to move away from the speaker.